you want to borrow mine,
Oh, thank you,
how
Valerie.
should we meet? Maybe I
Um,
can just bring it to you next Monday at the park.
sure. Yeah,
Because I like going over there. I would like be there tonight and listen to the band, but you know, I had other opportunities.
yeah. So in theory, it starts at 5, at least the food does. Can you
Okay.
be there at 5?
Yes, I believe I can. If I can't,
Okay.
I will call you.
Okay,
5 o'clock.
great.
Yeah. All right, good.
And if it's raining, we'll do it the following Monday.
Okay.
Great.
So Mike and John, you guys were not here last week, so we signed you guys up to do Shaw's, and now you've heard how much fun it is. Do you think that the two of you can talk about whether you'd rather do like a Friday night or Saturday morning, or if you can find a time in the next couple weeks to see if you might be able to do some card soliciting?
Yeah, I'm happy to help and try. I'd have to do that on probably a pretty quick schedule, like this week, because we'll be out. But I can swing by and get some postcards and spend a couple hours out there, if that makes sense.
Chris put together these cute little boxes. So it's like a little plastic shoebox tub, and it's got mini clipboards in it with like just some cheat sheet words or phrases if you need like what am I going to say to people to answer questions, so we have some consistent phrasing. And then it's got the stack of cards, it's got stamps in it, and it's got the little golf pencils. So you've got like little shoebox kit and you're good to go. And again, if you want to, you know, get the sign and the table from somebody, or if you want to just chat it up as people are coming and going, whatever works for you.
Perfect. Yeah, I think I might just do that. That way it feels like we're not like setting up really in front of Shaw's without having to ask them about it. Like I'll just actually just talk to people, and I think that'll make sense. So
Okay.
yeah,
John?
I'll try to do that this week.
Oh, hello.
Hi, John. You're the phone number, John, the 571?
Wait. Yes, I'm at 571.
Okay.
And I've got to get away from that so I can talk to you. Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. I'm a rotary dial guy.
Okay.
I don't leave the house. I don't really go anywhere. You saw me at the transfer station on Saturday, so I'm not going to be in front of Shaw's. I'm compromised, so I'm not going to do that. But anything I can do to sort out the cards that we've received and how to sort of order them, I'm happy to do that.
Great. So we'll circle back on that when we get to that after we've collected things. So that's good to know. Thanks. Perfect.
Okay.
Allison?
How do I unmute, by the way?
Okay.
Okay.
Allie?
So are there constant replenishing of the supplies? Because on Wednesday morning, I'm coming to get cards and I'm creating a little box for the Federated Church. On Friday, I'm going to St. Ambrose with cards. So my question is, like, can I take pencils, or how are you leaving items? I heard you left cards and you left a box, but are you also leaving stamps, and are you also leaving pencils there for them to fill out there? Can somebody explain that? I just want to have enough supplies for them, so that they're not like running around like, can I have a pen to fill this out? And maybe instinctively they would just put it in their bag and leave, but at the same time, it would be good.
The dump box is back at Chris's office. It has about almost 200 cards in it. It has all but a half a dozen of the pencils. So it's no, you've got what, 92 pencils or something. It's fine.
And there's 2 boxes. So there's another box out there, unless one of us has it right now. But I don't know. I mean, I think that we don't need to give the pencils to the churches. I think we can probably just give them cards. What do others think? And I don't know that we would necessarily leave stamps. But if you're like, if you're talking to people, you can offer the stamp, and if they want to fill it out right then and there, you can give them the pencil and take it back. But if we're not standing there with them, I think we just leave the cards like we did at the library in the town? What do others think?
I think you better leave pencils at St. Ambrose. I don't think you can assume that they're gonna have pencils.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I told Jen, so, and in my note to, somebody else, is that me? Sorry.
No, I think John has some feedback.
Oh,
John, you
okay.
want to mute yourself again?
So anyhow, so I'll grab some pencils, I'll grab some stamps, I'll make it work, but it is
There's
happening, and I'm
stamps.
still waiting for Lisa from the Baptist church to get back to me, so that's, we've done that, so that's
There-
good, we'll get it
there are-
out.
There are still lots of stamps in the box.
Mhm.
So it sounds like the idea is we pick up the box shortly before we need it. We use it and we return it the next day. Like for me, Tuesday morning, I'll get it back in Chris's, right? That's,
Or when it's most convenient.
okay.
Yeah, I took the time to go through the cards and make a list of what the suggestions were by different kinds of subject matters, just to make it easier, the next step easier. And it was interesting to see, how many people were interested in what kinds of areas.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that list, and also just to go through all of the cards when we get them. Do you guys think it would be useful for us to take a peek at Betsy's list now, or do you guys want to wait until we have all the cards in and sort of do it as a bigger project? What feels fun?
I think,
Valerie is talking, but you're muted.
I
So-
know.
Yeah.
I have too many things going on. I recommend we look at her list now, and I'm trying to make sure I can share it on the screen.
Well,
So-
I can give you a little sneak preview in that the big winner was roads and sidewalks with 13 comments. Runner-up was low and moderate income housing, and then sharing third spot were childcare options and better sewage or septic downtown. And then there were lots of other things that had one person, some interesting ideas.
Can folks see the list?
Yeah.
Great. It's a 2-page document.
Right, so you see that the little bullets show how many people.
Very clever way to do it.
This is
Yeah.
great.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I
it's-
love that.
It's 2
Say
pages.
that we have a pretty kick-ass committee. I just want to put that out there. So I
Oh.
think you guys are awesome. Like, I love this. Chris, you missed it, but we were all raving before about the adorable boxes, which we all love.
Does anybody know what ELL is?
English language learning.
Okay,
Wow. Cool.
That's great.
This is actually a fabulous segue too into our next conversation about criteria and whatnot. So I think that this is really a really interesting peek at looking at ideas. So thank you for doing that, Betsy, and thank you for sharing it, Valerie. And yeah, I'd love to have you send that out for us. And then I think maybe we'll replicate this type of format when we go through all the cards.
I'd like to make one more comment. As I was doing each card, looking at each card, I took a colored pencil and I checked off each item that I then put on my list so that I could see that I had taken all of the ideas. But also, if all the cards get mixed together, you know which cards actually have already been counted.
Right. And that's really wise. And also, so Betsy, you're saying so some people might have put a couple of cool ideas on a
Oh,
single
yeah,
card.
very often, yes.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's why you've got 42 responses, but if you count up all the dots, you're going to get a lot more than 42.
Got it. Nice.
And I just think it's reasonable if people have more than one good idea that they should be allowed to not have to choose between their children,
Absolutely. No, I think that's great. And I mean, again, I feel like you know, like it's almost a 20% response rate of people who did it on the spot. And, you know, probably the other 200 people or, you know, 180 people who took cards won't all turn them in or go online and do it, but I'm sure we're going to see some of those. You know, so I feel like that was a pretty awesome return rate. So I'm excited about that.
That's what I was just gonna say. Is 20% return rate's great on something like that. You don't usually get that. Usually, you're more in the 5 to 10% at those sort of events. Was there much? Could you tell if people were more leaning towards the online stuff? Could you get any sense of that as well? I was just curious for, you know, different crowds are going to gravitate towards different communication methods, but
Yeah, I would say anecdotally, more people suggested that they would drop it off or mail it. I mean, I only gave away a handful of stamps, but a lot of people were like, oh no, I have stamps. And I was like, I have it right here. I mean, literally I had it on my thumb and they're like, no. But because I showed them like, you can drop it off at the town office of the library. And a couple of people said, oh, I'll take it when I vote. You know, so, you know, they liked the idea that they could drop it off or mail it, but I think more people said that. And again, it definitely skewed age demographic. So, you know, I had 2 younger guys who like took a picture of the QR code and said, I don't need the card, which was, you know, that was great. One of them was towards the end and I was like, are you a tech guy? Because this is my last card. And he was like, oh, totally. I wouldn't have written it anyway. So anyway.
So there were, so far we've got 9 people that have responded online. 4 postcards showed up in the mail today.
Oh, wow.
So the, excuse me, the URL that's on the postcard, can we all see that? I mean, so you can see that 9 people have responded. Are you the only one who can see that page?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I won't bother to go there.
Yeah, what I'll do is for next meeting is I can export it out and I can send it out before the meeting.
Perfect.
Great.
I would say people were really very pleased to be asked. And there were very few people that, you know, kept their windows rolled up and obviously did not want to talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, Betsy, didn't we say we thought maybe a dozen people refused to talk to us and then we maybe missed another, you know, handful or so just for various reasons?
Well, and some of them, they thought that we were, you know, going to be pushing a candidate or asking
Right.
for money or, you know, they like, uh-oh, here comes somebody with a clipboard. I'm not talking to them. And some people, if I managed to get a word in edgewise, then they'd say, oh,
Right.
well, okay, you know,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
or there are a few who want to say, well, like, who are you? You know, and
Yeah.
my rap was a little different than Porter's, but you know, so, but I would mention that we were on a volunteer citizens group empowered to ask the public how they thought the money should be spent. Well, they liked the sound of that. And one of them even said at the end, as he drove away, he said, thank you for being a volunteer.
Yeah.
So it was sweet. Now, I have on my list in brackets a couple of places where I record some verbal comments, you know, like lower taxes that don't have cards to go with them.
Mhm.
But I put them in brackets and in italics, you know, so, and I mentioned that those are just verbal comments.
Great. All right, so are we set for next steps? Mike, you're gonna grab one box and do something at Shaw's. Allison's got the churches and Helen's gonna do Monday night next week. And are we good? Awesome.
The only question I have, do you want me to have another couple hundred cards printed up? I assume we're burning through them, it seems like.
So I actually had another 200 printed up on Saturday while we were in the throes of things, which is why there's so many in the box that Betsy returned. because Cindy Kimball brought us another 200 in the last, 20 minutes on Saturday.
And we only used 2 or 3 of hers.
Yeah, but yeah, and then I returned a couple dozen to the library because I had stolen them from there while I was waiting for Cindy to print. So what came back was probably 180 or something. Val?
Some ideas. It occurred to me to take a photograph of the suggestion box at the town office and put that on social media.
Oh.
And yeah, and I can put other messaging on social media. And has Facebook Front Porch Forum been used much? I haven't. Well, I'm a little bit behind on my Bristol Front Porch Forums, but has it been posted there?
Yeah. We haven't done that yet. When do we think is a good time to do that, guys?
Anytime.
I would do
As
it
long
now.
as it's active now. And also, are we thinking of a deadline, like respond by X date? Or is this going to be so open-ended?
When I
I think-
handed things out, I was urging people to try to get to it this week, because my sense is that a lot of people, if they don't get to it the first week, it's going to get buried under magazines and they're never going to see it again. And I said, because pretty soon we're going to start, counting up and seeing which things the most people want, so then they could think, oh yeah, I better get my vote in on my thing. So I think that most of those people, really do have the sense that they should get to it soon.
And I feel like that, yeah, encouraging people to do it soon is great. But we're obviously going to be collecting ideas through our September 8th spaghetti supper. So, I feel like we could say the end of August, or we could say, September 9th or something.
15.
Yeah. And, like sooner rather than later, because I feel like we're going to talk at the end of this meeting about our September meeting. We've been meeting the first Monday of the night of the first Monday of the month, but we might want to talk about, we want to meet twice in September, so we'll have our regular meeting, but then if we meet again in September, then we'll have all the feedback from the spaghetti supper, plus we'll have finished all of the stuff. Anyway, I'm not sure exactly how that will fan about, but just so we don't get too far behind in our next steps there. So we can think about that for a little bit as we have our next conversation. And then when we do our meeting planning at the end, we'll come back to it.
With voting coming up, are we able to have anything in that area? I was trying to think of things that get people from the village, outside of the village, that may not necessarily attend functions and that sort of thing. And that's one of the things that tends to draw out more of the population base. But I was just thinking about rules. I don't know what we're allowed to
No,
do or
that's
not
great.
allowed to do there.
We could totally put something in the foyer, couldn't we?
I think so, because it's not election related.
Yeah, let me check with Sharon on Wednesday and I'll get the details on that.
Yeah, and if she says yes, Chris, then I think we should take Rob's idea and just do that for sure.
Right.
And even if we just have another, Helen, you want to make another box? Another box and a stack of cards and put our pencils there.
We can even just move the one that's downstairs up for the night and I can pull it
Oh,
back
yeah.
the next day. when I
Thank
get
you,
there.
Chris.
John, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Okay. Right. Anything else about postcards before we move on to criteria and process conversation? Okay. I know we're all Zooming. Just want to do another group hug. I'm so pleased with everything everybody's doing, and I'm really grateful to you all. This is a good committee. And I don't say that lightly because I kind of hate committees, so that's cool. All right, criteria and process to evaluate all this stuff. So we've had our focus groups, and now we're talking to the public, and I love the way that Betsy sort of synthesized some of that information. And that kind of dovetailed a little bit with the way I've been thinking about it. And I wanted to, can I share my screen, Valerie?
Sure, hang on. Yep.
So I like pictures. So I have a little pictorial of some thoughts that I had, and that Chris and I have bounced around a little bit too when I was in there talking about cards. So I'll show my little picture here. Let's see. Let's see if that shares.
Yeah.
Got my little Venn diagram.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I was noticing and that I had, Chris and I had talked about when I was in was this idea that when we did the focus groups, what we got were like a whole lot of concepts from people, but then like some of the, nonprofits and then the matrix that Valerie has, like those are people who are like, what about this idea, like the bus shelter or the outdoor space at the library or something. So like there's these actual project ideas, and then there's concepts. And then of course, there's this whole question of like, what's even eligible for ARPA? And when we were at the dump, this came up that people would be like, well, is that money restricted? And, we would say like, it is, but we don't want you to restrict your thinking because we want you to really just come up with what you feel are the needs in our community and what, what type of spending would best address those needs. So I said, don't restrict your thinking. And we explained what we've talked about on the committee, that we'll take all the ideas, and the ideas that aren't eligible, we'll say like, hey, select board and community, like here's a whole bunch of great ideas. And maybe, another organization or nonprofit or another funding source could help with that down the road. But here's the ARPA eligible one. So some things are ARPA eligible. We have these actual project ideas, and I feel like we want to look for a way to let the concepts, themes, or that we're hearing from people kind of guide which project ideas that are ARPA eligible sort of make it into that sweet spot. And so again, that's why I like love the way that Betsy put that chart together, or her summary, because it kind of, she gave a bunch of like summary title areas. Anyway, so this is kind of what I was thinking. I can unshare that if we want to see each other bigger yet, but I just wanted to give you my visual because that's how I explain things.
I think that's very well done.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Can you include that? Can we include that as part of the meeting notes later?
Yeah, and let's send out, if it's okay with you, Betsy and Valerie, let's attach those as well.
So
Attach what?
Betsy's
Oh
summary.
yeah, I did send those out already.
Okay. Okay.
I was gonna say, I'm not good at tracking the data, and I don't know the best way to set it up and do it, but in my mind, it seems like we should be kind of a hierarchy of concepts and then funnel down through eligible concepts and then into actual project ideas that have been related. That way, if there's a pile, if the 80% of the respondents say that this sort of concept, that's probably what we should be looking at, down something in that vein. In my mind, that's kind of what I was thinking for how it should be assessed, but it is definitely easier to gravitate towards specific ideas and looking at that, especially eligible ones.
Chris, had you been doing some investigating of what other towns were doing for criteria?
Yeah, the only two that I've been able to find easily were Starkville and Moncton. I have their two criteria documents. And we can pull those up later and share them when we get to that. Save that. Actually, Valerie, you might have to share them.
I'll make you a co-host.
No. The reason I say that is I'm on my personal laptop and I don't have access to the Dominion Tech
I
Cloud
see.
at home.
So how would I have access to it?
You have do you have access to the Dominion Tech Cloud under your Windows Explorer?
Yeah, I do. Let's see.
While they're figuring this out, we never finished talking about Front Porch Forum and posting something.
Oh,
And
right.
at one point, we talked about having somebody post it once, and then 2 weeks later, somebody else on the committee posts something very similar but not identical, and 2 weeks later. And so I think if we have a format, we can take turns posting it and then deciding on a due date.
Okay. So I would be happy to take what we've done for the postcards and put together the format and include the link to the URL that Chris set up. And then, so what's today's Monday? So should I do that like tonight? And that'll go out Tuesday? And then somebody else do it next week and then the next week. So each week for the next 5 weeks, we'll do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I worry a little bit that that's overkill, but sure, why not? Yeah,
Well, I think it's good to be repetitive with the front porch forum because not everybody sees it on a particular day. They might miss it, and like I'm missing a bunch, but I might catch it on one of the other days.
and I like the idea that we came up with, who knows when, that we take turns sending it off. So I think Porter sending off the first one as the chair of our committee. And
Okay.
then maybe we should set up a schedule right now. So we know
Yes.
whose turn is it this week?
Okay, who wants to go next week? Helen. Okay, and who's
Okay.
gonna go the week after that? I'll put dates on this when we,
Thank you.
who wants to do week 3? Allison? Week 4? Mike?
What's,
I'll come up with the dates in a minute. Diane, you wanna do week 5?
what's the, is that in September?
Hang
Yes,
on, let me look.
it will be.
Yeah, so if I'm the 5th, then the 12th is Helen, the 19th is Allison, the 26th is Mike, and September 3rd would be you, Diane.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. And, you know, each person can, you know, put your own little flavor in a little bit. And should we list all of us committee members on it?
Yeah,
Helen's nodding, Chris is giving a shrug. Okay, so I'll just list all of us. So then each one, it'll have a different name as the poster, but it'll list all of us as the thing.
perfect.
Okay.
And it could be as simple as cut and paste an identical copy or a personalization if you choose to do that.
Just, yeah, just
Right,
a little.
I would agree.
A little personalization, so it's just ever so slightly different. If for no other reason, then if you change the title a little bit and the box a little bit, Front Porch Forum doesn't get irritated. If you run the exact same thing, I think they have a twice in a month, and then you don't get to say the same thing.
All right, that's
Oh.
good to know.
And the fact that different people are posting it also helps on that, along that line.
And also make sure that you do not check the box to share with other communities. So it's just Bristol.
Oh, right.
And we
Good
did
point.
actually have some people at the dump who are like, oh, but I'm from Starksboro. And I said to them, you know, if you have ideas about something that you think would make Bristol better, you're welcome to do that. You can see there's a box here you can check that says that you're not a Bristol resident. I said, but if there's anything that would make you come to Bristol and spend money or wish that you could buy a house in Bristol, you know, we're still open to hearing your ideas. But we won't share our Front Porch Forum with them.
Great.
Allison.
So we're only on week 5. Is that where we're doing, or we're going to continue so that everybody posts all the way through the end of September?
I think we should only do it through early September because then we're going to
Okay.
have our spaghetti thing and
Okay.
then we're going to start wrapping up our collection.
Okay. And then when you have a chance, we need to discuss the spaghetti dinner. So that needs,
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Yeah, well, so let's go back to criteria. Chris or Valerie, do you have something for us yet?
Yep, I will share. Let's see. Can you see that? Town
Yes.
of Starksboro?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it looks as though Well, Chris, can you explain this at all, or are you
Yeah.
using it for the first time too?
No. I've looked at it a few times. So as you go through, they came up with a concept of here's the criteria pieces that they'd like to know if a project fits. And then they go through each one. As you see what's shown here, it's like they use, as I said before, like their town plan and other pieces to try to come up with some of these ideas. And they scored it basically a 0 to 2 for each item. So they would take each idea and run it through this matrix and give it a quick note, is what their plan is. Then afterwards, they got a little deeper with it. Some of the stuff they were thinking after that, which I don't think I included. No, that was Starkville's methodology. Pretty easy.
Yeah, and that's actually, that's kind of interesting, you know, the way that they clearly identified their bullet points of things that they think would make Bristol or make Starksboro better. Presumably they're things that they think would, you know, be part of the ARPA eligible funding. And then is there a place for the person to actually write a description of their project proposal, or they're just giving it a title, name, and an amount of money and then checking the boxes?
I
Yeah,
think that the committee is scoring the proposal.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
looking at submitted proposals, and then people on the committee are scoring it with this score sheet, right?
Got it. Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
So I
That's
think
cool.
it's like phase 2 of our data collection is we take sort of like the summary concept, and that's the project, as you see, title of project or whatever you want, and then we run that through this kind of test. The other one was Moncton's, which was similar but different. So that comes up here in a second. And neither one was outlandish. So they did like a 1 to 10 for each one of these items. And if you look at them, they're sort of kind of the same, but they also had like the very last one, like a business plan. Did they provide you with all the details? Well, no, that's not what we're looking at this point in ours. So the 10-point system, I found that when we were doing the last fire truck piece, the 10-point system got really muddy.
Yeah.
It's sort of a yes, no, or really yes. I like that concept of the 3 that Starkville used, because it's down and dirty. Because what we found with the fire truck one was something that was important but less important on the scale of importance, was weighted the same as something that was very critical in the whole process. So the 10-point gets really muddy quick.
Yeah. I like that first one. Award 1 point for every 10% chance of successful project completion. Who knows?
Right. We don't really think this is gonna be successful. It looks like Betsy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I like on this list that they are looking at the question of how many people will be helped by it. And I didn't see that on the other list.
Mhm.
And I don't think that that should be equal to all of these other issues. I mean, I think the amount of public good should outweigh a lot of other considerations.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is a good.
I think too that like what makes me think, because I'm looking at these and I'm like, it's interesting, like the categories that these 2 towns put forward. And I would want to look at those a little bit more closely and you know, and think about that. But and I reflect back on our first meeting where we had that slide where we wrote the words that were most important to us. And the ones that I felt really sugared out or where there was a lot of repetition were, and I've heard committee members say over and over, like, you know, we want it to benefit the broadest swath of our community. We want it to be, you know, an investment, an enduring, lasting thing. Not something that's like creating a new and ongoing expense. And there was a third one. I don't remember what the third one was. Oh, people have their hand up. Maybe they remember. Diane? Diane, yeah, I see your hand up. Did you want to say something?
She's still muted.
Yeah, that's a mistake. I didn't lower it from the last time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Betsy, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
No, I lowered it before you got it.
It's true. And I said, I see hands up. You're like, oh, the hand comes down.
Diane, you can lower it from the same place that you raised it.
Yeah.
Mike has his hand up.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing these, Chris. I really like, in many ways, the way that this is set up, but I kind of want to build off of something that Betsy mentioned, which was both of these seem to have like a cumulative score. And while there's absolutely merit to that, it might discount where people's passion or where the majority of our responses are actually being centered on, right? So if we get lots and lots of responses from the community that are pretty focused on a single area, but doesn't extend into these other categories, if we adopt criteria that need a holistic score, we may or may not actually capture the wants and needs of the community. So it's a small note, but I think it might be worthwhile for us to try to think out how we can balance, as Porter suggested, some of those broad principles that we talked about in that first day, while still allowing ourselves to follow the suggestions, even if those suggestions end up being a narrow slice of what we see as a bigger issue. And I guess my only hesitation for the Starksboro and the Moncton rubrics, if you will, are that both of them seem at the end to total a score that wouldn't capture that specificity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm adding to my Venn diagram this overarching concept of principles. Okay, now there's hands up again. Okay, Rob.
So I don't remember where we ended up on what we are putting forth to the select board in terms of how many things.
Mhm.
Are we putting forth one single suggestion, or are we putting together a top 5, top 10, top 3 of suggestions that we've sugared out from all of this?
I don't think we have any idea yet.
Well, I think,
Okay.
as I recall from a prior discussion, we need to make the number of projects manageable within 2 years. So, yeah, just a manageable number within the limited time we have available.
Okay, because it's definitely going to be critical to classify these in some way so that we could set up some sort of a hierarchy that everything's looking in this category and then grade them from there, so to speak, instead of just the grades of each one, and try to keep track of the density of suggestions for this versus that sort of thing.
Betsy?
I think that we should maybe wait to the end of the month to set up the criteria, because we may find tsunamis of interest and passion that just make it so we don't have to do this diddly squat stuff. It may just be really, really obvious to us. If we find that we don't just automatically have this realization, hey, we need to do this and this and this, and let's save these other by category and look for ways to do the other ones. But I mean, I think that we could waste a lot of time setting up categories that don't really match what we get. So I would suggest that we wait and do this, the end of the month.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, so as far as like for the lack of a better term, categories go, back to your Venn diagram order, I think that is actually, when you look at the responses we've received, the chunk of them at this point, you can almost use the Venn diagram concept to create these. Again, we have the concepts, then we refine out to the concepts a little bit, and I think the concepts are our sort of first tier, and move down to the item. Somehow utilize. I think we're going to have the data we need to create these correctly. So as people are saying, the things that we don't care about, or the population doesn't mention, why evaluate them?
Let's see. So Betsy, is your hand up again?
No, but I got something else I could say. And
You go, girl.
And that is that I was really startled to see how many people were very worked up about roads and sidewalks. Mostly it was a question of safety for kids, for exercise for people. I mean, these kind of fit into other categories, but the solution had a lot to do with roads. And, I wouldn't have just a couple of months ago thought, hey, road infrastructure is a big deal. I mean, because we work on it regularly, but I was really surprised by the amount of passion and the way that people feel like it is really affecting their personal pleasure in the town. So anyway, that's why I'm thinking that, we may get surprises in some of these categories about how people are looking at things.
Right. I'm losing track of the hands. I'm sorry. Diane?
Yeah. And I think I'm unmuted. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I have two things. One is I agree that we should wait and talk about criteria. The two things. One is I'm hoping we'll be able to have some in-person meetings when we talk about this, because I hate Zoom meetings. And as a perfect example is how Chris is breaking up when he talks. I didn't understand anything he said. I don't know if that's just my iPad, but
No, it's I couldn't either.
yeah, he's totally broken up. So that was wasted. The other thing is that I need to talk to people about when people are making suggestions about things that are in the town budget, like sidewalks and infrastructure things. I think we need to talk about what's appropriate and what isn't appropriate. I believe if things are in the town budget, that's the money we should use. Taxpayers pay for the budget. And so why are we using free money to pay for something that has already been planned by the town? Just because sidewalks are expensive doesn't mean we should grab this $1 million pot and spend it on sidewalks. So I want to talk to other people about that. That's not really something to do on Zoom though. I think we just need to talk about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I don't know the best way to do the principles thing, and I think that I think we can keep free flowing this conversation now, and then have this conversation again after we've all mulled it over a little bit. I can share with you sort of like I don't want this image to be like our end all be all, but this is sort of what I'm doing as we're talking, but I don't want you guys to think that, like these things that I've written here in principles are like done. Like as a group, I feel like we want to spend more time here. But I think that these were a couple of things that had percolated up from that first meeting. And And I said there were 3 and I couldn't remember what they were. And Diane, when you said something that's not already in the budget or already has another source of funds, that's definitely something that I've heard before and that was on the thing. So maybe that was it, or maybe it was leveraging our funds, which is something we haven't talked about, that I want to explore a little bit more. Like, it sounds like other towns are going ahead and doing their thing, but there might be some things where we want to try to talk to other towns and see if we can pool. But definitely there seems to be strong consensus about serving the broadest number of residents, and having it be an investment, something that, our children can look at and be like, yeah, they did that with ARPA funds. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
I think it looks pretty darn accurate.
Yeah, I like it. It helps compartmentalize and prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the only other one that I think is really important too, because it keeps in the concept of what this money was for, is that it does not create a long-term budget item. These are supposed to be one. Oh, there it is. Yep, thank you. Gonna shut up now.
That Porter.
So the other thing I want to do is this one. So this was our slide from that first time. And I think there was another slide somewhere where I'd actually like counted up, where things were, kind of like Betsy did with the dots on her thing. But so the light blue ones on the edges were people who were not committee members at that meeting, but I still wanted to honor what they shared because they came to the meeting. But the ones in the center, the colored ones, those were us. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's so
Are we
interesting.
seeing anything else here that we feel like we want to elevate to the level of a priority?
Well, these were our ideas on that very first day in our first meeting. And I think it is interesting to reflect back on them, but I don't think they should define how we move forward. This isn't an example, but it's interesting that opioid treatment is on here. And we went through Betsy's list from the dump pretty quickly, but I didn't see anything about helping addiction. So where does that land? Here we are as committee members, some of whom thought that recovery support and opioid treatment is important, and yet no one in town mentions it. What do we do with that?
I wonder if one reason is because what's the action? What's the actual action? It's so open-ended and undefined. Is it hiring somebody? Is it paying for medical treatment? Or what is it exactly that we're talking about?
Right. But you would think if you're in line at the dump with this card to fill out and you feel that the opioid crisis is really a dilemma in Bristol, you would just write down something about opioid treatment. Maybe people felt that they had to suggest a solution to the problem as to what's the problem.
Right.
Oh, that's actually a good point. What is the problem? We're not expecting you to come up with the solution, but tell us what you think could be better, what could be fixed, even if you have no idea how to fix it. I mean, the same is sort of true for childcare, affordable childcare. That's going to be very difficult to implement, and yet many people think that that's important. So
I think it's interesting when we talked about our committee, this was our hopes and goals, for our role in helping the select board decide what to do with this money. And so I think that there's some things where our hopes and goals as committee members and why we came to be on the committee was maybe a little different than when we ask the community what they think the biggest needs are in the community. Actually, you said revisiting this is valuable, but not necessarily directive for us. What I find interesting as I look at this is, I was really, really struck by the 4 focus groups, how all 4 of them spontaneously coalesced around those 3 issues of housing, childcare, and transportation as a very distant third.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting that we didn't actually, as individuals, mention those. And so, I feel like the focus group, and then again, hearing from the public really, informs me. But like Chris was saying, like, I think this is a little bit more about our principles and our values as a committee, as opposed to the concepts or themes or of issues that arise for the community, which again is distinct from a specific program or project that, like, Turning Point might come to us and say, here's a specific project that we think is worth ARPA funding. And so that sort of speaks to Rob's like funnel concept of that. So, we have like our priorities, and then we have these concepts, and then what's eligible, and then the projects that sugar out.
Yeah. I'm glad you saved this slide. This is really interesting to see.
And I think what I'd like to do is send this slide out with the notes as well as the Venn diagram slide, so we can sort of be just like mulling this over, and then we can pick it up again and people can say, what's missing, or we need to change this. So it doesn't, like, I'm going to send these slides out just so we can be thinking and mulling, not so that we're like, okay, we're done with that. Like, this is a conversation we're starting today, and then we're going to talk more about.
Yeah.
One of the other things that seemed to come from the focus groups that I noticed, I'm sure everybody else did too, was the desire and a lot of mention of using all of the money for one thing and doing one large impactful thing with it, as opposed to splitting it up for multiple different things. And so I don't know how we would work that into kind of the criteria, maybe just somewhere a checkbox, yes, no, in that as we go through. It definitely wouldn't negate a possible project, I don't think, but I feel like it should play a role in that factor.
So, Rob, are you saying that you are hearing in the focus groups that desire for people to see a single impactful spending rather than a bunch of little ones?
Yes. Yeah, and I don't, at least from what I saw from the couple that I had direct involvement with, I don't know that we will get that sort of response unprompted from the general public, but in those settings, it seemed to come out.
Interesting. I was in the nonprofit focus group, and there were a lot of ideas being, I would say, thrown out, presented and discussed. And I didn't get the impression that they were vying to be the one proposal that was going to be listened to and expanded and proposed. So it's interesting that it seems like the focus groups are different in that respect.
I do recall
there was no specific project that everybody said this should be the one or that should be the one, just to maximize the effect of the lump of sum.
Yeah.
And I do recall more than one group, the idea they didn't want to see it frittered away in tiny projects that would not be impactful. I don't remember necessarily the theme for like one giant one, but I think that idea of something that really makes a difference, rather than, just little things where you're like, oh, where did that money go?
Yeah.
Should I stop sharing the screen, or do people still want something up here? Is it okay if I stop sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I add to this? The last item in my little postcard summary, I had people that were telling us what priorities to use. Like the two people say, use funding for long-term benefit.
Yeah.
To benefit the biggest number of people.
Yeah, I had people say
Concentrate on
that.
real needs, not potential needs.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming from the community. And it could be, that if we wanted to sometime, at the spaghetti dinner or wherever, to just say, and what kind of criteria would you use, and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did, one of the things we talked about was ultimately going back to the community with like a ranking opportunity. And that was something that Jessica had talked about, sort of letting people weigh in. And I think we seemed to like that idea when we first talked about it, like I think it was in June. And maybe when we do that, if we come to that point, we have actual projects, they can rank their preference for projects, but maybe also, maybe there's a question there about, do you have a stronger preference for, one big one or a handful? Partly it'll just depend on what sugars out and what we ultimately see makes it through all those funnel layers. So for next steps on this thing of, criteria and process, I feel like our next step is just to sort of read over the materials and the notes that we have here and make some thoughts. And then we can look at, firming this up a little bit at our September and then be more specific about where to go. Right. Great.
And
And I will
when's the next meeting?
Not quite there yet, but hang on a sec. So
Okay.
if any of you, as you're looking at this, have ideas and that you want to start our meeting with, I'm happy to hear those and put those forward. Or if you want to mull them over and we just come together and start discussing it, that's okay too. I don't know, is it easier to have a starting place? Or do you feel like we have enough of a starting place with all the different materials? We'll have the Starksboro and Moncton criteria. We'll have our notes from our first meeting and the little Venn diagram for today. We'll have Betsy's sort of example of a way that we can start to take all these cards and ideas and sift them and sort them. Is that enough fodder to give us something to chew on to start in September?
I think so. I think we need to be prepared to try to finalize or be very close to finalizing that criteria for the ranking, separate from the categorizing of all the cards and suggestions. Just looking at timeline with only a couple meetings to the end of the year now.
And the other point that I think is going to be an interesting one that we should be thinking about, Rob, is this idea that we can take our principles and our concepts and the ARPA eligibility, but we don't actually have a lot of fully fleshed out project proposals. And so, that's a question that is like, how do we do that? Chris?
I don't think we do.
Okay.
I'm okay with personally coming up with a half a dozen broad spectrum projects. And the details to get there really are going to fall back on the select board. That's when we're looking at putting together the scope of the project, getting RFPs, going down that road. That's way beyond anything that we as a committee would do normally. That's just my 2 cents on that.
So if we don't have fully fleshed out project ideas, then we are giving them guidance in the direction that they're going to go. And we're guesstimating, okay, we can, with 1.1 million, we can choose these 6 projects, but we don't know exactly plus or minus. So we might prioritize them and let them try to get to the RFP phase and do what they can.
That's sort of my gist on it. And if after they review it, if they feel that they'd like to pull us back in to help dive into those details, those that want to stay at that level could stay and help beyond there. But I think for this process, it's really the sort of a high level of the project idea. These were ideas. These are the things that we heard from the public primarily. These were things that we feel as a group really would move our community forward.
How do people feel about that? I feel like it seems like the most realistic way to go. And I think that other towns have done it a little differently because they're asking for proposals from the community. And I feel like what that's going to do is it begs proposals from the people who are already resourced in order to produce the proposal. And I'm feeling like I want to honor the information that we're hearing. And what I don't want to do is put the select board in a position, like if we say like, we need more housing and it needs to be affordable to a working family, exactly, like they can't do anything with that. But if we use our filters and then we give them something that's a little more tangible, so I think we need to be tangible enough that it's doable for the select board and not just sort of like pie in the sky.
Right.
But I don't feel like we need to hand them, a cost proposal that's just like a done deal.
So, yeah, I agree. So just to say, oh, we need more infrastructure and or sidewalks is way too broad. If we narrow it down to, we would like to see improvements made in the Pine Street, Liberty Street area, because that was a big one that came through. We've at least narrowed it down and given them focus of where we feel that those funds would be properly directed, if that makes sense.
Rob? You're muted.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I see this as getting us on the right road, not at the destination of what the exact project is, but get us headed. This is the direction or the 6 different directions that the town as a whole felt we should go with this ship. So here's just enough guidelines to easily get within this box of what the town wants.
Betsy?
Wouldn't it be the town's business to kind of put out there, we would like to see some proposals for new approaches to childcare here? And I mean, just kind of publish that and see who calls them up and says, yes, here's my pet project. I mean, somebody has to do it, but I don't see that we have been, empowered to be putting out specific proposals. And the select board, I'm sure, has a lot of cards in their hand, and they are not obliged to take all of our suggestions, but that this might give them ideas of which things they want to, they may know people who have already talked about these different problems. But if they know that there's a lot of public support for it, then they might go ahead and get on the phone and say, okay, I'd like to see more about what your idea is.
Chris, is your hand up again?
Yeah, and there's also the off chance that we provide, the high level concept ideas, and the select board points us back and says, please go dig deeper into this concept, get us more details. So I don't want to go down a road that unnecessarily and burn time where we're overstepping what the real goal is.
Okay. Helen? You're muted still.
Might it be worth asking the select board specifically what they want from us? Now that we've had this conversation about what we think we feel comfortable giving them, well, what if that's not what they want?
And actually, to your point, Valerie, do you think that it's time for the select board to hear from us what we've done so far and what our next steps are and where we're going? I mean, I know you update them, but do you think they want to hear directly from us?
That might not be a bad idea. And to Helen's point, going back to the original appointments in the letter that you all received, or memo you all received, I believe there was a brief outline of what the charge of the committee. I'd have to go back and look at it to see exactly what it is, but I think it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
At least partly there.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't I plan to come to a meeting? I think that I might already be on the August 22nd meeting anyway for other stuff. So that'll be before our next meeting here.
Okay, sounds good.
And then before we talk about our next meeting, we want to talk a little bit about the spaghetti dinner. Are we in a good place to move on from the criteria process? Everyone, thumbs up, everybody's good?
I just have one question about the postcards that we're collecting over the next few weeks in terms of finalizing those. Is the goal that we're going to try to pull together something like Betsy did, each of us independently before the next meeting?
No, I think
Okay.
that we should consolidate all of those postcards and we'll make a goal to do something like what Betsy did for our, I think I'm going to propose our second meeting in September.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm perfectly happy to move on.
Okay.
I think one question is who's going to do that?
I'm happy to do that. I love, like I'm a professional organizer. I love sorting things into categories. But I would also say Betsy did a fabulous job and I'm totally happy to nominate her because she can be our organizing queen anytime. But if somebody else wants to do it, that's cool too. So, but I can't wait to read all the cards personally.
Yeah.
So, so if Betsy, you want to do it, that's awesome. If you're like, I already did 42 and I'm done, then you can tap out. But we can sort that out between our first meeting in September and our second one.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Oh, where's my hand? I can't see my hand. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I think there's two jobs, and one is to go through the postcards, which is lots of fun, you know. But the other one is the people who looked at the card and you could just see the wheels turning in their brains, and they're going to send a letter, and their letter might have a proposal for solutions. So that will be a little more complex. And I don't know how many there are. So I'd be willing to look at some of the letters and we'll just have to wait and see
Yeah.
like how many of them there are.
And also, actually, I think you raised a good point, Betsy, which is like we already have the ones that have come in that Valerie's collecting in the matrix. So I think we want to take the stuff on the website, the stuff that's already come in on the matrix, other things that might come in a detailed letter or whatever, and the cards, and put them into something that we can as a group look at, kind of apples to apples. So anyway, but we can play with that in September, and maybe that's like a little subcommittee task for people to do for fun.
Right, but keep track of if in fact we get some interesting proposals, that we have a pile for those letters that outline the proposals, because they're not going to go readily into a 3 or 4 word description.
Well, they might actually. I mean, a good proposal you can easily distill into a 3 or 4 word description and put in a category.
Yeah, you can put it in a category, but you need to keep what the proposal is in case that's what you
exactly
pick.
So it's in a category with a little special symbol that says full proposal attached.
Right, and that would be useful when you're going through it and say, oh yeah, look, we've got some proposals on this, this, and this.
I'm laughing because Betsy, I don't know if you can see everybody's faces, but people are like, clearly Porter and Betsy have a passion for categorization, and yeah, we'll talk more.
Yeah.
Okay, Spaghetti.
Hi, so everybody received the document in regards to that from last meeting. And so in order for this to be a success, we do need individuals from our committee. So hopefully you read through that and you saw our needs and wants, and there may be an area in which you'd like to participate in. So if you're not familiar with it, I went ahead and I wrote that the note taker from the presentation would be Porter and Jess. So those two people are, sort of off the table. For the presentation, it would be very similar to what we've already done for our focus groups, except we're going to have paper and we're going to ask for information to gather on large sheets of paper. So, two people in that arena, like with the presentation, this is what ARPA is, this is what we're doing. And then just, getting the people jazzed up to write their responses and then taking that information home. And then if you want to be somebody who wants to be in the kitchen, I'm still waiting to hear back. It's hard because the school staff is not back yet. And so I'm still waiting to hear back from Bertha in regards to the kitchen and all of that stuff. So that's kind of paused at the moment. But still having some participants in the space, I think to, also to sell this, like you're going to come for a dinner with the hopes of staying for a presentation, and getting people excited about that. So, looking just for like, a couple of people, I refer to it as servers and runners, but to do that. And then the last thing would be, if we cannot get Bertha to prepare the food, is it okay to go ahead and hire covers?
I say absolutely hire covers if you can't get the school to do it.
Okay.
There's no reason not to, and we can use ARPA money for that. And
Okay.
I
Perfect.
just have a question. So as a note taker, if people are going to be writing their ideas on big sheets, what type of notes is getting taken?
I didn't know if there's like conversations that you're hearing people talk about, or I don't know, just maybe we don't need that either. I mean, that's a good point. I don't know. I figured,
like if you want me to type up what ends up on the big sheets, I can do that.
You could do that. Right. Yeah. But so maybe you're saying that you're right. If they're writing on a big piece of paper, I guess like the side conversations or questions that they ask, they don't need to be recorded.
So are we talking about flip chart paper? So there's going to be flip chart paper with like the sticky ridge at the top so that you can stick it along the walls?
So what it is each group would have a specific colored marker, and they're just going to be rotating through. So we will just rotate them. So they have a few minutes to write down their ideas, to read and write down their ideas. And if there's another suggestion, please, let's have it. And then the paper would just rotate through so that every group had a chance. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, that would be really cool. And I have an idea about that. And then they could, read from what other people wrote, respond to what other people wrote. And it might, inspire more thought and care. And then we would just collect those at the end.
And when you say other groups, like, are these people in different rooms?
No, they're going to be all in the library.
Everybody's in the library. So how do you get stuck into, like, what's your group? Or is it just everybody's in the library?
So, and here's the other thing. And we're thinking, the space of the library will be enough. But then again, who knows? Because we suggested that we say no, what was it? Reservations recommended, but not required. So that, if we get 20 people who respond, maybe we get 40, so I don't know number wise what that's going to look like. But in the library, I don't know if you're familiar with it at the elementary school, there's several tables, and it's like an open space, and people would just be sitting at an area with their markers, and the papers are the only thing that rotate.
Oh, so the papers go from table to table, instead of having the papers on the wall and the people move around.
Oh yeah, that's too hectic. Yeah. So the paper would just rotate through. So people would like read, like I said, the idea was, oh my God, I never even thought of that we needed like sewer upgrades or whatever it may be.
Right.
And then, yeah.
I'll just say, with the paper on the wall and people move around and hectic's not necessarily bad. And I'm totally fine with going with moving the papers, but I will say as a presenter, there are exercises that I do where I have papers up on the wall and I do give people pens and I say, every idea you can think of, go write it up there. Don't even stand in line. If somebody's writing, get in there underneath them. And if somebody wrote what you wrote, put a star by it, and people just sort of move around and they do exactly what you said. Is they look and be like, oh my God, I never thought about that. I like that idea too. So we would just,
okay. We just can't hang things up in the library.
Okay.
So there's books. So that would mean that we need to reform where we're going to do it. So that means that would then have to take place in the gym. And then if it's raining or the hallway, I guess. Yeah.
Would it still be possible to do it with just the paper on the table and everybody rotating around instead of on the wall? Just a different
Sure, you can.
Look.
You can do that. I guess I just don't,
Well, here's what I'll say about the paper on the walls. There's a different energy. So if you have a paper that is flat, the energy, and I don't mean to be too weird here with energy, but when people turn down and focus their energy this way, it's very different than when they put their energy this way. So if we want people to sit and hear a presentation and then discuss with each other and come up with ideas at a group, and then we post those, and people, maybe they have a certain amount of time to, write their ideas as their group. So they're like a mini focus group, and they're talking to each other and sharing ideas and writing them. And then we post those in the hallway, and people can walk around and see the other group's things and add to them if they want to. So that's one possibility. Or we put people in a group and we do our presentation, and then we say, go out in the hall and just write whatever you want. But just thoughts. But
I guess we should get that like solidified tonight, just so that that's one less thing that we're talking about. So it seems like you have really great ideas. So how about instead of note taking, you do the whole presentation, and however you get all of the information from the people. All in favor? Thumbs up for Porter to do that.
I think that you do the presentation, but I'm happy to sort of coordinate because I do, public speaking and training and, participant engagement for a living. I'm happy to talk about those things. Yeah, I don't need to do the presentation. Valerie, your hand is up.
In my many past years as a planner, I had a lot of public engagement procedures, and one that had been very successful was to have a preliminary presentation to orient everybody why they're there and whatnot, but then to have facilitated groups where a facilitator writes the notes on the paper from the different groups, and either, if there's time permitting, then somebody else, somebody's designated to kind of consolidate the different ideas among the different groups. And so that it's not, the list isn't so repetitive. And then hang the sheets up. And then folks are given 5 dots. And if they can only pick 5 things, what 5 things would they pick? And that helps kind of sugar out certain priorities. But if there isn't time to do that kind of consolidation, you can still do that. There just might be repetitive ideas on the pieces of paper along the walls. And I agree with Porter that having them on the walls is more provocative.
Yeah.
Anyway, I forget what that's called. There's a certain name for that type of process, but anyway.
One of the hardest parts is, do we have 20 people or do we have 200? And honestly, how we do it is we might need to be ready to pivot a little bit because of that. I was, when Allison and I were talking about it, we sort of looked at hoping to get 100 or so people, and that's a manageable number with sort of the concept of moving data around. What my concern with is when we put a group of people together without seeing other people's ideas, is you have a tendency to get tunnel vision. Everyone at that table also starts talking about transportation, and nobody can get off transportation. When in all reality, I wanted to hear that they want hummingbird habitats, or whatever the hell it is. So that was sort of the concept of moving the ideas from spot to spot, was to break that monotony, or that potential tunnel vision, where people just get focused in on their one little idea and keep honing deeper. So that was the only hopes for breaking that up.
When will we know approximately how many people are coming? When do they need to RSVP by?
I mean, we got to buy the stuff by like Wednesday.
So the posters be working on the little document. Chris did the QR code. We have that. So that is what we need to determine, like, when do we want that information? I know at one meeting we said we didn't want it until the very end of August because people will forget. It's the second week of school. It's not yet a full school week. So that's the other thing that we're sort of working with. I mean, ultimately we could put up the papers in the cafeteria and just use the cafeteria. So I guess clean it and then do it there, because we can't put things up. I'd have to check about the hallway because things are already up in the hallways at school. The gymnasium we wanted in case it's raining so that the kids would have a place. So the other option would be the cafeteria. So it'd be cleaning, like a cleaning crew, and then assembling the posters, but the presentation would have to happen in the library. So then we would be moving from the library to the cafeteria. So that's just like transition time for an hour. So it's those are the little things to think about.
And actually, Allison, that's not a bad idea. Because then it does give you a little more room to work. We can give the presentation and we give folks the chance to get set up. It doesn't look like we're sort of helter skelter. And then when they arrive back to the cafeteria, things should be in theory in place. And we're ready to roll with part 3 of the evening, which is the actual brainstorming and data gathering.
And you could also do it where you do the presentation in the library and you do have them work in a small table group in the library. And then they bring their posters down to the gymnasium and they put them up and they go around, and then we sit down and have a little bit of additional, like, so they can, engage with it a little bit, and it'll be just a short thing, but so they see everybody else's, and maybe that sparks some new ideas and we get a couple more things, and then we say thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we save the cookies until after, right?
Right.
So
We
they
have to-
they have to do the presentation, write their notes, come back, circulate, and they get the
Yes.
cookies while we wrap up.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was funny because I know that we're jazzed up about this idea of doing it this way. I was actually talking with a buddy of mine, and I mentioned how we're trying to gather data in the community, and we've originally talked about doing like the traditional Holly Hall thing, and the first words out of his mouth were, "I'm busy that night." I said, "But what if we offered you a free meal and you just had to write stuff on a wall?" He's like, "Hey, I could probably do that." So it was amazing how his whole concept changed like that when it went from something a little different than what we normally do.
I'm sorry, Betsy, is your hand up?
Yes, I just want to officially, for the sake of the minutes, move that we get the food from Cubbers if it is not available through the school.
Thank you. Somebody want a second? Rob, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Betsy. Anything else you guys need from us for the spaghetti?
No, but just maybe do people want to be part of it?
I will
I'll
be
do
there. I
anything-
will not
I'll do
commit
anything
to
you want
it.
me to do.
I will
gonna
not
be
You
there.
commit
don't
to
even need
anything
to sign up
specific,
right
but I
now.
will be there.
Okay, you'll be there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all
And
I
let's
need.
do
I
it this
just need
way.
names. Right.
Is there
I
anybody who cannot be
can't.
there on Thursday, September 8th?
The Bristol Conservation Commission, that is our normal meeting night. I will propose to them that they change it so that I can be there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see if
And
that
that they could be there.
That's right.
Yeah, my availability would probably hinge on that as well.
Childcare.
There you go.
That's true.
It
Yeah.
might be beneficial for everybody.
Except your kids are invited to the spaghetti dinner.
That's right.
I'll
They're
try to
not
put in a good
invited
word.
to the Conservation Commission meeting.
I'll try to put a good word with the chair though of that to try to push that if I can.
So showing up at the elementary school at 5:30? No, probably 5.
No, a little bit earlier if you could, just for, I mean, I will send updates once Chris and I get information about the numbers and things of that sort. But if I would say I like early birds to be there just to kind of help, because, we're going to have the setup. I'm going to be doing like this, the presentation setup. So then making sure people are here and there. So I would say like 4:45, the latest.
Right.
Did
to-
they
to
give you
show
a
up.
time of when it's available, of when you can be in there, when school functions end and when we
Yep.
can
Oh,
go
yeah.
in or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
So I signed out all of the facility forms, and we can be in the kitchen as early as 4.
Okay.
To set up that piece. And then like the playground, there still will be ELP happening, but we don't need it until 5:30. We were thinking there's going to be some early people for dinner. The kids will get fed and then they'll run out, and just kind of planning for all of the uncertainties of people's schedules, which is, a little dicey because there are going to be some people early, some people late. But I would definitely say that please know that if you do show up, you might be that crew that's going to clean the cafeteria to get it set up for the presentation. I think that would be really helpful. But thank
Well-
you for all the help.
Will covers deliver or does someone need to pick all that up?
So again, I have to still hear back from Bertha in regards to the kitchen and whether her staff wants to participate in this. She still has to walk me through, or any of us through, how to use the kitchen. That's sort of part of the deal. And once I know that, hopefully within the next week or so, then we can just go ahead and do covers and find out if they're going to deliver. But most likely, I think we do pick up, but we can find that out. Yeah.
Anytime we've used them for the fire department to do dinners, we've gone and picked up the food.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But it's just ready to go. So, and I'll tell you, I'm available that afternoon. I will be your minion. I will do anything you say. Generally, people do not want me in the kitchen. Just not a strength area. I'm gonna put that out there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ally.
So our next meeting, we're scheduled for Monday, the 5th of September. I would like to propose that we also meet on the 19th, and I would like to do both of those in person if possible.
That is Labor Day.
Yeah, that's a holiday.
Oh,
Just
And
as
I'll be
just in
away.
case it was forgotten.
yeah,
I'll be
it was
away.
totally forgotten in my mind. What do we do about that, folks?
And then the following Monday is a select board meeting.
Of course, right. So we certainly can't meet in person that day. Well, do we want to just, maybe we meet on the 19th instead, and then we catch up if in October?
It seems like the 19th would be a great opportunity to wrap up any final details too.
Okay, great. So let's do the 19th, and I'm just going to do a trigger warning that might be a little bit of a longer meeting. I've been trying to wrap up by 8:30, and I actually told Betsy, I'm like, I don't think our agenda is that big. I think we'll wrap up early this time. So I'm sorry, Betsy, because I know you have something else tonight. But maybe on the 19th we allow ourselves, if we need to go a little bit longer, and then can we go ahead and say that we'll then meet on October 3rd and 17th? Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna meet once in September, twice in October, and Valerie, can you put us in the meeting room, and we're gonna meet in person?
Right. What's the twice in October?
The 3rd is our regular
Yeah.
meeting night,
Yeah.
and then the 17th.
Oh,
is we're
okay,
hoping-
I missed that.
Yes, just hoping, because that's an off night for the select board, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we would love everybody to be in person if they can, but let's have the owl ready if I know if John's
yeah.
not comfortable meeting in a group.
Yep.
But hopefully everybody can come who's feeling healthy.
Yep.
I'll make sure that that's ready to go.
And I think Allison, are you saying you might not be there in person?
There's a possibility that I'm going to be away on the 3rd, but if we have the owl, it'll be fine. I can do it on the road.
Right.
Okay.
Good.
Got the backup. All right. Anything else? You're muted, Helen.
The September meeting is also in person on the 19th.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so not on the 5th, on the 19th. Anybody else, last minute things? Great. Well, thank you, everybody. You're an awesome group. Oh, Rob?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Okay, great. Adjourned at 8:39. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in September. Have fun with your postcards. Chris, I did order 200 more from Kimball's. Hopefully it made it onto the bill somehow. I don't know. But you can keep an eye on the box and refill as needed.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna order more up Wednesday just to be safe.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, they were fairly inexpensive. I think it was $60 or $66 for 400 of them, so.
Yeah.
And Chris, you're in your office on Monday until 4 for me to pick up cards for music. Excellent.
Yep, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay.
So Friday, the office is technically closed, but I'm there, so you just need to call and set up a time so we can meet. But I am
Okay.
available on Fridays as well.
But that also means that I'll return the box on Wednesday.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Porter.